Good morning, everyone. I, Dr. Purnima Madan, on behalf of Lloyd Business School, welcome our eminent speaker, Dr. Mohd Mehdi, all the faculty colleagues and the students who have joined this webinar. Lloyd constantly strives to build knowledge for its young managers by bringing astute leaders and faculty to augment their learning. In order to embrace the managers with latest developments in the corporate world, Lloyd has taken initiative to conduct expert talk series called Enhancing Employability Skills for Budding Managers. Today, we are having our 14th expert talk on supply chain risk management. Without much ado, I would like to introduce our eminent speaker for today. We are honored to have with us Dr. Mohd Mehdi. Sir is currently working as an assistant professor in Lloyd Business School, Greater Noida. He is a PhD from the Faculty of Management Studies and Research, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. He has qualified UGC NET 2 times. Sir has obtained his master's in business administration with specialization in operations management and BSc honors in computer applications from AMU Aligarh. His core area of research is supply chain management. His research interest includes operation management, total quality management, and quantitative techniques. Sir has a lot of qualitative research and quantitative research papers published in the national and international journals of repute. He has presented a lot of research papers in international conferences hosted by IIT Kharagpur, Royal University of Bhutan, etc. I welcome you, sir, and I hand over the session to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Really for this really nice introduction. I really indebted to you. Thank you, ma'am. Shall I start now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning, class. Myself, Dr. Mohd Mehdi, and I will be taking the session today on supply chain risk management. So it's really good to see you all. So without wasting any time, I'm starting with the topic and I'm sharing my screen with you. And you can put your questions for the last of the session, okay? I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay.
Students, please confirm through the chat box if it's visible or not.
Okay.
Sir, it's visible to everyone.
Okay, ma'am. So the topic for today is supply chain risk management. Just to start with, why supply chain risk management is important. So first of all, why supply chain is gaining importance, and when it is gaining importance, why it is necessary to manage the risk associated with it. So we need to look into all these aspects, and we will be looking into it with a lot of examples which have occurred in the past, and as well as in the recent times, some events have occurred. So we will be discussing all those things as well. So supply chain risk management is becoming a hot topic for today because of its importance, which it is gaining in a business scenario. Okay, so before starting and going into deep, we shall know what is risk and what is supply chain risk management, how it is defined as. So you're looking at those aspects. So what is risk? So when you talk about risk, so how we define risk? So when you talk about risk, it is a possibility of any harm or any loss. That means possibility of occurring any destruction or any loss that we call as risk. So when you talk about risk management, we need to devise those ways through which we can reduce the impact of those risks, or either we can eliminate the risk, and if we are not able to eliminate the risk, we should at least reduce its impact. So risk is any harm, loss, or destruction, and risk management is reducing the possibility of the occurrence of that risk, and if possible, in any ideal scenario, eliminate the risk. So what does risk mean? So these are the different types of risk listed here. Any uncertainty, discontinuity, possibility of loss, injury, fluctuations, instability, complexity, any unforeseen event, like we saw the COVID-19. So it was like when you talk about, there were a lot of things which got discontinued. The supply chain was saw a lot of discontinuity, uncertainty, and a lot of events happen. So vulnerability, security threats, hazards, danger. So all these are listed as risk. Okay. So why we need risk management? So enterprises relying on other firms for their success. See, in today's globalized business scenario, no business entity is working in seclusion. They need to be in partnerships with the other firms. So there are, when we talk about the supply chain management, there are the third party logistics or the fourth party logistics. So again, enterprises rely on different firms for their business requirements to be met up. So when there are a lot of stakeholders, we need to manage all those things, and that increases the possibility of risk. So we need to manage that risk. Okay. So many enterprises spend most of their budget on purchasing the goods and services, but still there is not much focus on supply chains. But with this globalization, with the digital age and the use of IT services and the requirement of the goods and services at a faster pace in the market has evolved supply chain. And that is why supply chain is at the center of focus of all things. There are just-in-time deliveries. If you talk about Amazon Prime delivery, in 4 hours you can you can order anything and it will be delivered to you. You just need to be a Prime customer. If you talk about the Blinkit, just blink of your eye, and you will get within 10 minutes what do you want, what you want. So you will be getting all those things. So the supply chains, the requirement, the customer requirements are faster. The customer requirements are growing, and that has resulted in supply chain getting a base and importance. So in this globalization, and now when we are connected to the digitalized age, so the business enterprises cannot afford to say no to any particular delivery demand. When we talk about delivery demand, it means the time which a company will take to deliver a particular product. So that shall be as swift as possible. That shall be as quick as possible in the best possible manner. So that is why we need to manage the risk which are a hindrance or are an obstacle in delivering those things. So that is why we are having the just-in-time deliveries, we are having the lean inventories. So with globalization, there are extended supply chains are there. Supplier consolidation offer many benefits, and in efficiency and effectiveness, they can also make supply chains more brittle and can increase the risk of supply chain disruption. See, if we talk about supply chain, we can divide supply chain into two parts: the upstream, and the second is the downstream. When we talk about upstream, it includes the supplier and the manufacturer. When you talk about the downstream, it includes the manufacturer, the distributor, the wholesaler, the retailer, the customer or the consumer at the end. So there are a lot of stakeholders, and then there are the third party stakeholders are also there. We have our outsourced partners are also there. So there are a lot of stakeholders in a particular supply chain. So we need to manage the risk which is associated at every step of that. So that is why we need supply chain risk management. There's an example given here of March 2011 of the Tohoku earthquake and the subsequent tsunami which occurred in Japan. And it showed how one event can disrupt many elements of global supply chains, including supply, distribution, and communications. So we all know during the time of that tsunami, there was a lot of disruption in the supply chains. There was a shortage of many things in many countries because the supply chains were not able to work at that time. And there was a classic case of that there was a shortage of the hard disk throughout the world because the hard disks were not being supplied from Thailand, where it was mainly manufactured at that time. So there was a lot of shortage. In India also there became a shortage of hard disk at the time because of the tsunami. And one more example which I would like to share is that I think it's an event of the recent past only. I hope you all have heard the incident of the Ever Given ship. which got stuck in the Suez Canal near the coastline of the Egypt. So that was a very big ship. And due to certain reasons, it got deviated from its exact path of passing, and it moved towards the coastline of Egypt. And when it moved towards the coastline, due to the less buoyancy, it got stuck there. And when it got stuck there, since it was a big ship, no other ship could pass through it. So what happened, because of that ship being stuck, there were 300 ships on both sides of Ever Given. That means on both sides of the Suez Canal, the northern side and the southern side. There were 300 ships on both sides waiting for Ever Given to be cleared up, so that the path can be cleared and they can move on. And you know what was the loss per day? The per day loss was about $10,000 billion. Just one ship got stuck. Okay, not hundreds of ships. Just one ship got stuck in Suez Canal, and the disruption in supply chain was $10,000 billion. And this is the event of, I think, a recent past only. You can also search it on the internet. You will find by the name of Ever Given ship. So that is why we need supply chain risk management. So here it is about the supply chain risk management. The source of this particular presentation is about the Cranfield University School of Management. So supply chain risk. So the likelihood or the consequences of events at any point in the end-to-end supply chain. So we need to coordinate. We need to coordinate all those activities so that we can eliminate, and if not able to eliminate, at least we can reduce the impact of that particular activity, which might disrupt our supply chain. So supply chain risk management is the implementation of strategies to manage both everyday and exceptional risk along the supply chain based on continuous risk assessment with the objective of reducing vulnerability and ensuring continuity. Okay. So if we talk about the risk in a business, so you can just see the topmost risk is posed by supply chain only. The 20% of the risk are associated with supply chain, followed by the price fluctuations, labor issues, IT systems, and so on and so forth. And if we talk about in particular only supply chain, then there are supply chain disruptions 82% of the times, longer lead times 79%, pressures from the executive 78%, customer pressures 77%, global sourcing and the lean and GIT initiatives 73%. These are the 5 and 6 top supply chain risks which are occurring. Okay. So again, we need to manage all those things so that that is why we need supply chain risk management. So this particular slide explains those various risks which are required to be managed. Okay. So why are today's supply chains so dynamic and complex? So this particular presentation in which we will discuss about why the supply chains are so dynamic today, why they are so complex also. We have used 2 words. Those 2 words are dynamic and complex. When you talk about dynamic, it means that there is a lot of change which is occurring. And we are talking about, when we talk about complex, that means there are a lot of things which are required to be coordinated, which are required to be managed. So faster, Amazon Prime Delivery, Blinkit, Zomato, Swiggy. What Zomato and Swiggy says to you, within half an hour, we will deliver it to you. Okay. Ola, Uber. So that requirement relates to the supply chains being faster. When we talk about stronger, see, there is a lot of competition. And why there's a lot of competition? See, with the advent of e-commerce coming up, there's a lot of competition among the business entities. Okay. And that is why if you see a mobile phone which is being sold in a retail outlet, you might see that the price of that mobile is 15,000, and you are getting it on Flipkart or Amazon at 13,500. So I ask you, where did that 1,500 go? So who has saved us those money? Who has helped us in saving that money? So where did that 1,500, how we saved it? So this is all because of the supply chain and the e-commerce, that we are eliminating the intermediaries in between. And that is required in today's scenario, so that the more cost can be saved up, so that there can be price competition among the business entities, and the customers get the best product in the least price as much as possible. So the supply chains are more stronger. They are cheaper as well, quicker. See, when you talk about the quicker, we see that there are a lot of applications which are being developed by the various business entities, so that they can be in contact with their customers 24/7. Okay, there are the shorter lead times are there, and the shorter lead time means your supplier shall not take much time in supplying the raw material to you. Okay, because the more time they will take, the more time you will also take in manufacturing, and the more time will be required to send the product into the market, to make the product available into the market. So the shorter the lead time, the quicker your product is available in the market, and longer the lead time, the longer the time you will take to make your product available into the market. Wider globalization. When you talk about globalization, let me tell you, if there is any product where, like any electronic product, if we take the example of Sony, like if there are the LED TVs or any electronic gadgets which come from Japan to India, they do not come from Japan to India directly. They go to from Japan to Dubai because of the bulk selling, and that is why the transportation cost per unit decreases, because there's a lot, Dubai being at the center of the place and a business hub. So a lot of volume is being transported to Dubai, and then from Dubai to India. So an LED and a Sony LED TV cost less when it comes to India from Japan via Dubai. And on the other hand, if that Sony TV would have come from Japan to India directly, its cost would have been more. So again, this is the effect of globalization. Okay, lesser inventories. We shall not be having overstocking, and we shall not be having understock. That means our inventory shall be as much as we require only. Because if we are having over inventory or overstocking or understocking, they both will result in revenue loss. Okay? Overstocking will result in, like, we will find no customers for that additional stock which we have maintained. So revenue loss will be there. And understocking, we will not be able to fulfill the demands of the current customers. So we will be having the customer lost. Okay. Then there are the changing demands are there, and there are a lot of other reasons as well. So that is why, like, if we elaborate upon this, why is supply chain risk important? So even a relatively small supply chain disruption caused by a localized event have such consequences. We just discussed the example of the Ever Given ship. So we do not have any control over the causes to the events in supply chain. Now, if that Ever Given ship got stuck into the Suez Canal, no one had the control over it. So we do not have the control over the causes. We can only have control over the consequences. Like, we can only reduce the losses. We can reduce the impact. So we can reduce the risk only. We can, most of the time, we cannot eliminate the risk. Only we can reduce the risk. Okay. So this is the location of the risk in the supply chain. These are the various types of risk are there. Just a second. The supply risk is there, process risk is there, network or control risk, then there is the environmental risk is also there. So when you talk about the supply risk, see, we just discussed that there shall be lesser lead time shall be less. The supply shall not take much time and shall deliver the raw materials to you in the promised time. Okay. The quality of raw materials shall be good, because the final quality of your product will depend on the quality of your raw materials. They shall not be delayed in transportation. Okay. Then there is a process risk. Like there are a lot of process risk which are there. There shall not be any difference in the number of units which are being manufactured. Variation shall not be there. Every product which is being manufactured shall be of exactly the same size, shape, quality, features, and on so on and so forth. Lengthy assembly lines shall not be there. Equipment shall be reliable. There shall not be bottlenecks. Outsourcing key business partners shall be, they shall be reliable. Power failure, machine breakdown, absenteeism, IT problems shall not be there. If they will be there, there will be a lot of process risk because you will not be able to do your, daily working or the daily manufacturing will come to a halt. If there is a power failure or a machine breakdown, your manufacturing will not done, cannot start. So those processes shall not be there. Then there is a demand risk. So loss of major customers can be there if they don't find a product available in the market. So if you are having understocking and there comes an exponential demand at any time, see, we see that during the festival times or during the New Year season or during the wedding season in our country, we see that the demand rises exponentially. So you need to maintain or you need to manage the demand. So to manage that demand, you need to have that inventory available so that there is no loss of customer. And you also need to forecast the demand in that manner that you shall be able to forecast exactly what will be required after 1 month, what will be required after 15 days. So you need to know all those things. The customer base shall be intact, shorter life cycles. See, when you talk about shorter life cycles, if you see that the bread which comes to your home, if I talk about like once I met the owner of the Harvest Gold Bread. So the owner of that Harvest Gold told me, like, we do our manufacturing in the evenings, like after 11 or 12, and in the 4 or 5 hours we do all that manufacturing, and we start delivering 4 a.m. in the morning. So you see, the bread which is coming to your home daily, its delivery starts sharp 4 a.m. in the morning. It goes to the distributors, the wholesalers, the retailers, and the kirana stores in your, in your colonies, or the supermarkets in your colonies. So if you see why they need to have that 4 a.m. delivery, because of the shorter life cycles. A bread can be stored for just 2-3 days at max 2-3 days. So there are shorter life cycles, so you need to manage that demand. Okay, when innovative competitors are there, when you will, when your syllabus will start for MBA, you will see that there are, 5 forces are there. So one of those 5 forces is competitors. So you need to survive in the market, because you are not the only player in the market. There are the competitors also. Okay, so you need to manage, like if Jio is providing data free of cost in 2016, then what Airtel did, they also started providing free of cost data. And if you see right now, the rates of the Jio or the Airtel or the V, you will find that the rates of the internet recharge which you do, it is almost the same. Because if any one of them increases the rates further, there will be a customer portability which will occur. So you need to manage the competition as well. Okay, so they shall not be inaccurate forecast. Now there are network or the control risk. So they shall not be inefficient communication. So now this particular problem has been reduced to a lot of to a lot of extent, because of the availability of the application softwares and all those things. So the inefficient communication has been controlled to a lot of extent. Poor visibility, this particular thing has also been controlled, but it still exists. Inappropriate rules, lack of collaboration, bullwhip effect is also there. And then there are the security threats, theft, data loss, counterfeiting, terrorism, piracy. So all these things have to be controlled. Then there are the environmental risks. So economic shifts are there. A recession is there. So when recession is there, the purchasing power of people decreases. So then when the purchasing power decreases, there is lesser demand. When there is lesser demand, there is lesser supply, and then the supply chain suffers from all these things. The natural disasters, we talk about the tsunami was a natural disaster. When we talk about any of those floods or any of those, like you might have seen the various types of natural disasters which occur, the earthquakes or the flooding. So all those things affect the supply chain. Labor unrest, policy risk. If there is any change in legislation, then you need to abide by that legislation, otherwise there will be lawsuits against you. Competition risk are there. Resource risk is there. Lack of human resources, capital, and technology. When you talk about lack of human resources, see, in this time of AI and machine learning and the data analysis, so what happened, like in the IT industry, there was a lot of attrition. And TCS, Amazon, TCS, Wipro, Infosys, they retained about 80,000 of their employees. You know how they were able to retain? Otherwise, those employees which would have switched to some other company, they were able to retain only when they provided the promotions and the salary increases to their employees. So this is how the lack of human resources sometimes affects, because you might have the AI or the ML, but for implementing them on the ground, you need people. And if the people are not stopping there at your workplace, then how you will be able to do the work? So you need to stop the people. You need to retain the people. So for retaining, what these three companies did, they provided promotions to all of them. They increased their salary. Okay, and then there are also resource risks like the raw material risk. You see, like an iPhone. The iPhone, in an iPhone there is a chip which is made from a sand dust, which is available in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and you do not find that sand elsewhere. So for making that iPhone chip, you need to procure that sand from Congo. So again, if you see the resource risk, if there is any geopolitical issue which might occur, so you will not be able to procure that sand from Congo. So what happens is that there's a lot of resource risk. That resource risk also includes human resources. Okay. Then there are the INT risk. So information breakdown can be there. Cyber security. We see that that there is a lot of cyber security issues which occur. Technological obsolescence is there. So you shall not enter into obsolescence. Information delays, lack of transparency, lack of information transparency, lack of compatibility. Like if you talk about lack of information transparency, once I had the opportunity of meeting one of the businessmen who imports Pampers. So most of the Pampers which are being imported in India, they are imported from Indonesia. Okay, so he told me, like, due to the lack of information, we sometimes are unaware about where our product is. It has been dispatched from Indonesia. It has not reached India. It is somewhere in between, and we do not know where it is. So further, he said that it takes about 6 months for those Pampers to be dispatched and to reach India supermarkets. So it's 6 months time it takes. So all those things can only be overcome through IT only. So that is why now that there is a solution through those application platforms. So now there is better information transparency, but again there are still certain lacunas which needs to be fulfilled. So these are the supply chain risk drivers. Some are internal and some are external. So when you talk about the internal, they can be the people, process, mitigation, governance. There are the external ones. The geopolitical issues are there, demand, environment, supply chain. So there's a lot of vulnerabilities there, and there's a lot of exposure to risk is also there. So supply chain risk and its impact on business interruption. Like we have used two words out here, risk and interruption. So that risk leads towards interruption. And if any business, let me tell you before going further, that if there is risk, and because of risk, if there is interruption, no business can imagine to survive if there are repeated interruptions. Until and unless they are a very big company or a Fortune 500 company. Otherwise, a new startup or a 5 years or a company which has been into existence for 5 or 7 years, it will be difficult for them to survive if there are repeated interruptions. So this is the current scenario. See, most of the manufacturers, they use third parties. So for providing those logistics services. So if you talk about the data given here, it was about the global electronics contract manufacturing. It was about contract manufacturing. That means a third party who is manufacturing on the manufacturer on the behalf of manufacturer. So $360 billion was the figure in 2011. And in 2015, that figure reached to $426 billion. And now we are in 2022. So it has crossed $500 billion already. So we see that there are a lot of third party which is into picture. So again, we need to manage the risk associated with the third parties. This is a report by the Center for American Progress. See, these are the Thai floods battering the global electronics, auto supply chains. Thailand flooding cripples hard drive supplies. Stunning photos of the post-apocalyptic Japan. So you see that the tsunami pictures are there. And because of that tsunami, how much interruption in this supply chain was there. You just see those pictures and the summary being written there. In 2011, the floods in Thailand and tsunami in Japan highlighted the prevalence of outsourcing and the extent of interruption that can occur even in industries expected to have superior business continuity plans and redundancy. So when you talk about those causes over which we do not have any control. See what they have written. Even the superior businesses were affected because of it. The Fortune 500s were also affected because of it. So you see the effect which supply chain risk poses. What was the result? Losses in the hundreds of millions of dollars for well-known electronics, computers, and auto manufacturers. So most businesses have supply chain exposure because now no business can compete in the market if they do not have dedicated supply chains. So most of them have supply chains. But supply chains are not just vulnerable to natural catastrophes. They are not sufficiently planned for. See, if you look at the second and the third point, they are not just vulnerable. They are not even sufficiently planned for. Companies or the business entities have still not sufficiently planned for their supply chains. The robust supply chains, or today we call as the lean supply chains or the agile supply chains. Or we talk about the lean agile supply chains are there, which are lean as well as agile, minimum wastage, and as fast as possible. So what crux we draw from it is that business entities have still not planned well for the supply chains. And those companies which have developed their supply chains, they are not only successful, they are thriving in the market. They are highly successful. So you will see this particular fact more. You will witness this thing, that those companies who are managing their supply chains well or in a robust manner, they will be the only entities who will be successful and thriving in the market. See, if you see this particular demonstration, see, just see this thing. A bulb is being made, and initially products were manufactured at a single location. The filament, the glass bulb, threaded connector, or the leads, they were all manufactured at one point, manufactured and assembled at one point only. But now what is the new reality? The new reality is the light guide is manufactured somewhere else. The threaded connector is manufactured somewhere else. The LED, the chips, they are manufactured somewhere else. And then they are collected and assembled at a point. All those various parts are manufactured somewhere else. And then they are assembled at a point, and the assembling is done. Similar is the case with the iPhones. The iPhone parts are manufactured in various countries, and then they are assembled at a particular assembling center, and then the iPhone is made. So this is the new reality. And when we are manufacturing at different locations, so we need to bring all those spare parts or all those different parts of that particular product to the assembling center. Now again, supply chain becomes important because you need to bring all those things at the assembling center. So your supply chain shall be as swift as possible. Okay, so this is the new reality. So which has put more burden on supply chains, but if planned properly, it can be very fruitful, and companies are now enjoying the benefits of that. So those companies which are having dedicated supply chains, they are in competition far ahead of the ones who are still to do that. So these are again 3 examples. One was published in MIT Sloan Management Review in summer 2006. A fire at a key Philips semiconductor factory in 2000 caused a worldwide shortage of the radio frequency chips used by both Nokia and Ericsson. Nokia immediately lined up another source and redesigned other chips so they could be produced elsewhere. However, Ericsson responded more slowly and lost an estimated $400 million in mobile phone handsets. So if you just see, there was a disruption, there was a shortage of radio frequency chips. Nokia found a solution for that. Ericsson was not able to find out, and how much Ericsson lost? $400 million. The entire Japanese vehicle industry ground to a halt following an earthquake. And because of that, the production of piston rings for engines provided by Riken, the industry leaders, was, there was a shortage of those piston rings. So Toyota in particular was forced to stop operations at all 12 of its domestic plants. See, Toyota is a very big name in automobile industry, and all of its 12 domestic plants were forced to stop operations due to the shortage of the piston rings for engines. So you just see the supply chain risk. And then there is a quote here. Yesterday, it emerged that ice cream supplies may run short because Unilever's only United Kingdom factory based in flood-stricken Gloucester has been closed for the past 10 days. The company usually manufactures 5 million ice creams and lollipops a day at the plant. It has stocks in freezers, but it could be days before normal production resumes. So industry insiders predict that there will be now an ice cream war as rival brands attempt to exploit Unilever's predicament and gain market. So if you see, since Unilever had only a factory in Gloucester, which was suffering from from flood, so for the past 10 days, so the manufacturing could not be done. So, and that particular plant was manufacturing 5 million ice creams and lollipops at a day. So now this gave a room to the other ice cream manufacturers, which were the competitors of Unilever, to gain market. So again, supply chain risk is there. So this was again the news of the Times on 31st July of 2007. Now this is the business benefits of supply chain risk management. Like if we manage risk, now we have discussed a lot about why we need supply chain risk management, what are the risks associated with all those things. So now we will come to the point, what are the benefits of it? So the benefits are, you will be more transparent in your business operations. Like if you talk about Zomato or Swiggy, you get a minute-to-minute information. The valet has arrived at the restaurant to collect your order. Your food is being prepared. The valet has collected your order. Your order will reach within 15 minutes. The valet is at your doorstep. your order has been delivered. So if you talk about, this is all increased transparency, improved timely delivery, agility, visibility, increased service levels. So these all application-based platforms have led us to that transparency and the increased timely delivery, visibility, agility, and all those things. Okay, so and more proactive risk detection can also be done through those digital platforms. Operational efficiency increases, your loss decreases, your lost sales are reduced, and if there is any issue, you can you can detect that issue in no time and can fix that particular issue. Your supplier performance will increase, your asset utilization will be good. Okay, so when you talk about best practices in supply chain risk management, so for best practices, so as to gain the benefits of supply chain risk management, you need to have certain things in place. You know how to achieve those benefits. So you need to have an enterprise risk management solution, or now we commonly call as the application platforms shall be there. Regular manufacturing site checks shall be there. You need to take care of the cyber threats, because all your information is passing through that those digital platforms. And if your information transparency is not there, your timely information is not passed, your supply chain will suffer. See, when you talk about the supply chain drivers, there are 6 drivers in supply chain. And when we talk about those 6 drivers, there is a facility, there is a transportation, there is the inventory, there is pricing, there is sourcing, and then the 6th one is the information. The 6th one, information availability, is the backbone of the other 5 drivers as well. So you need to have that information availability. The real-time information shall be available. So for the real-time information to be available, you need to have your digital platforms to be working properly. So you need to manage your cyber threats. You need to mitigate the risk. You need to jointly create contingency and crisis communication plans. That means you shall have a plan B already in place. You need to establish business rules based on minimizing supply chain risk. You need to develop those rules so that the supply chain risk can be reduced. You need to share supply chain information. Real-time information shall be passed on so that you can coordinate with all your partners, and there is a minimum risk can be there. Thank you. That brings us to the end of the presentation, and if there's any questions, they are most welcome.
Thank you so much, sir. I would request now everyone to kindly post their questions. So we have received few questions. If you permit, we can take them.
Sure, ma'am, sure.
There is a question, sir, which says that which skills are needed to be successful in supply chain management?
See, as far as we talk about the skills, first of all, we need to have that particular basic knowledge about supply chain. See, there are a lot of courses which are also there, which basically are designed for these things. But before going for those courses, you need to have that basic understanding of the various supply chain aspects. Like when you talk about supply chain, there is procurement, there is production, there is the operations aspect. So lot of things are required to be understood before we can go for those specialized skill sets. Then if we talk about those skill sets, we have the courses on the Six Sigma, the Kaizen, the Kanban techniques. There are various courses which we can go for, and they will help us in understanding and becoming a good supply chain professional.
So there is another question by Anurag, and he wants to make a request. He wants that, can you please repeat downstream and upstream?
Okay. When you talk about upstream includes the partners which are from the manufacturer level and the upside. So we talk about the suppliers and the manufacturer. They are in the upstream of supply chain. And when we talk about the downstream, it starts from, again, the manufacturer is the common point. So manufacturer, distributor, wholesaler, retailer, and then the customer or the consumer at the end.
So there's another question, and the student says, can you please explain the purpose of supply chain risk management?
See, we discussed a lot about it to eliminate all those risks. We have just discussed at length. We discussed about the ever given ship. We discussed about the tsunami. We discussed about that Nokia and Ericsson case. So if we will not manage the supply chain, we will not be able to set. See, if a simple statement has to be said, if we do not manage supply chain risk, there will be huge business losses, and we will not be able to meet customer demand. And when the customer demand will not be met, there will be customer loss, and there will be revenue loss, and the businesses will shut down.
So there's another question, and the student says, how deeply the supply chain will be taught in MBA in operation? Can we build career in supply chain after taking MBA in operations?
Sure.
So he wants to understand the career options.
Okay. There are, right now, supply chain field is one of the most sought after fields. And we have MBA specialization in operations management. So your first year in MBA is common, and then you need to opt for the specialization in your second year. We have operations management as full specialization at our college. So if anyone of you want to take up it, they are most welcome. We have the specialization subjects on supply chain and logistics management, project management, manufacturing systems, and all those subjects are there, which will be taught to you at length. And also there are subjects in the first year as well, which will give you an insight how the supply chain, how the working in supply chain is, and you will get a detailed understanding in the second year. So supply chain will be taught at length to you. So if you want to take up, it is one of the most sought after field today. So you can you are most welcome to take that.
So there's another question, and the student wants to understand what type of forecasting method should I prefer in supply chain management?
See, the forecasting methods are different for the various types of product. So when you talk about forecasting, sometimes we do prediction for that, and there are tools for that. So a lot of data is collected, and that data is analyzed. So we cannot just name one for that particular point. There are the various types of techniques which are used by the organizations. So different organizations are using different types of techniques for that. Like when you talk about the forecasting, basically we use the economic order quantity methods, the EOQ methods, so that we can predict what can be the what shall be the inventory which we shall manage. So EOQ is one of the most common techniques and one of the best techniques to predict how much inventory we shall have. So we can have that EOQ technique in place.
Sir, if you permit, can we take another question?
Sure, ma'am, sure.
So we have exceeded a lot of time. There is a student who's asking, what are the company's top risks? How severe is their impact and how likely they are to occur?
Can you repeat the question, ma'am?
The student wants to understand what are the company's top risks?
Top risks.
How severe their impact is and how likely are they to occur?
Okay. We discussed this particular point during the presentation. See, supply chain is one of the most top risks for any organization. And we also discussed this particular point. It's that many a times the organizations are not sufficiently planning for the supply chains. And when there is any natural disaster or any geopolitical issue, so the supply chains are the first ones to suffer. And these supply chains are so, we can use the word dangerous, because they lead to huge revenue losses. There was a $10,000 billion per day loss because of Ever Given being stuck in Suez Canal. So companies, if they're not having a lot of revenue resource, they will face problem of survival if they will not manage their supply chains efficiently and effectively.
So the last question for today, the student wants to understand the role of supply chain management in IT companies, and also would like to again understand about the environmental risk.
Okay, environmental risk. Okay, so when you talk about supply chain and IT, so they go hand in hand with each other. Okay, right now, if you see the platforms, like if you see the applications, if you see the Flipkart, Amazon, Zomato, Swiggy, Ola, Uber, Rapido, anything or everything you are seeing, the supply chain is being driven by IT. So in today's scenario, supply chains cannot work efficiently if you do not have the proper IT systems in place. Okay, that is about supply chain and IT. When you talk about the environmental risk, so we discussed this particular point of the environmental risk, and if you give me a particular second, I would like to take that particular slide out here and would like to show you that particular thing. See, these are the various types of environmental risks which were there. So we do not have the human resource sometimes. We sometimes do not have the resources required, the raw materials. Sometimes there is a legislation change out there that due to pollution or due to noise pollution or water pollution, there are certain restrictions which are in place. Certain times there are the new competitors in the market. Certain times there's a natural disaster, labor unrest. So these are all under the supply chain, under the environmental risk associated with supply chain. That's it, man.
Sir, there's one more question if you say, because the student is requesting me to take this question. He says, how long does it take to implement the supplier risk management program?
It will depend upon the product portfolio, or you can say the product mix and the product line and length which you are having, which we basically call as a product mix. So, and the customers to which you are catering to, how much base you are having in the market. So if you are a big firm like Reliance, obviously you need to have big, robust program for supply chain risk management. And if you are a startup, obviously that will be lesser in scale. So again, it will depend upon the number of products which you are manufacturing. Like if you talk about Walmart is into the retailing of thousands of products. So their supply chain will be more robust as compared to any other one. So, and if we talk about this Walmart, they were the first ones, or we can say the pioneers in supply chain and IT collaboration. So that is why it will depend. The time, we cannot just say a number because it will depend upon the product mix and the product length which you are having.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a wonderful and insightful session. And I hope the students would have understood in detail as to what is the supply chain risk management is all about. And I believe, sir, your lecture has incited and inspired them to take the, supply chain as an, and operations as in specialization subject. And let me assure to all the students, Dr. Mehdi is one of the very proficient ones who can take this subject and he'll be teaching you in MBA. So I think you shall be, looking forward to be stuck, to work under his guidance and to learn under his guidance. Thank you, sir, once again for such an insightful lecture. Thank you, students, for joining, and we shall be meeting again on Friday with another session. Thank you.